Hi, this is Shay Wheat, certified event producer and owner of Grace and Ease Productions. And in my episode for the Business Growth Architect Show, I will share the 5 phases of events to scale your business and leverage your time.
Hello, fabulous person. Beate Gillette here, the Growth Architect. Welcome back to the Business Growth Architect Show, where we bring you cutting-edge business strategies from some of the world's most successful entrepreneurs, business transformation experts, and visionaries who want to help you to scale your impact. Look for one tangible strategy that you can take back and implement right away. And now back to our guest. Welcome back, everyone. This is your host, Beate Gillette from the Business Growth Architect Show. Today, I have with me a pretty spectacular woman who's done some really big things, like she moves big things. Welcome, Shay. I'm so excited to have you on the show. Tell everybody who you are and what you do. What do we need to know?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Shay Wheat. I'm a California native. I enjoy the sunshine here in lovely California with my fiance and my fur babies. And, being in California, Northern California, we've got wine country right there. So that's not horrible. Right. And we also enjoy traveling abroad now that we can actually do that again. And then professionally, I love connecting on the power of events. And we also support speakers, coaches, and expert thought leaders in creating a wave of change in their communities through events.
So one of the reasons I wanted to speak to you is because you have a big philosophy around events and using events not just in the regular kind of way. Because when we had our get to know each other call, you had shared that there were different levels of events. And, my first question typically is, what is strategy for you? So I would like to tie that into it because you already have a strategy developed. Care to share?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So strategy is really taking a look at, there's actually 5 phases, in my opinion, of event leverage and strategy. So depending on where you're at in your business, you should be doing certain types of events. And what I did the other day was I was actually writing down what are all the different types of events that people can be utilizing in their business right now. And I came up with 17.
Oh, no way.
There's more.
17 different types of events people can leverage. So yes. I'm going to jump in here and I'm just going to make clear that people understand what we're talking about here. So as an expert on whether you're a podcaster, a coach, a consultant, a speaker, or you use speaking to build your authority, you are able to have different types of strategies to get that authority to go and build that through some sort of medium. So Shay, you take that part using events to build that authority. So let's go through some of these levels of events. So let's say I am just starting and I have an idea. It's not entirely fully flushed out. People tell me there is something about me. Where do I start?
Yeah. Well, if you're super, super brand new to business, or maybe you're starting a brand new leg of business, you're in phase 1, and that's the validation phase. So in this phase, your primary goal is to get clients and get them crazy, awesome results. That's it. You should not be doing events in phase 1. This is where you're really doing the market research. You're making offers. You're modifying your offer based on what you're learning. And then you're making more offers to get to the point where you now have 8 to 10 full rate paying clients and you're getting them crazy, awesome results. Now you've proven that you have proof of concept. You've gotten testimonials and you're looking to move into phase 2, which is visibility. Now you can start taking a look at actually becoming more visible and utilizing some of those 17 different types of events I was talking about earlier. So you're going to start using the free platforms, okay? Your Facebook Lives, your Clubhouse rooms, your Instagrams. You're going to also want to take a look at being a guest on other people's stages. So with that, you're going to want to look at webinars, podcasts, summits. And then thirdly, you're going to want to take a look at sponsoring events. And by this, I mean, you are actually being a speaker sponsor on somebody else's event where they are bringing in your ideal audience and you are gaining visibility with what it is that you do and being of service to that audience by giving some type of free lead magnet. In phase 2, your goal is to start bringing in all of the leads, booking more strategy calls, having more conversations, making more offers to the point where you are reaching $5,000 or more a month consistently. That's
Excellent.
how you move through the different types of phases.
Okay, great. And so now we are in the third phase. So now I got my stuff together, right? And now
Yes.
I'm like, I think I'm ready for a bigger stage. Now it starts to get a lot more interesting, right?
Exactly.
So tell us about that. What
Yeah.
is so powerful about now phase number 3 and up?
Yep. 3, 4, and 5, you are continuing. You'll never stop growing your list, right? But you're going to start doing it in a way that are bigger stages. So phase 3 is grow. And this is where you're increasing your visibility by creating your own stages. Okay. This is where you're going to start looking at hosting a masterclass, a webinar, a summit. You can look at maybe even becoming your own podcast host and obtaining larger speaker sponsorships. Because in phase 3, you're wanting to get to the point where you're consistently bringing in about $10,000 a month consistently in order to move into phase 4. In phase 3, you're also going to start looking at, if you don't have already, bringing on team to support you, because phase 4 is about scaling and phase 5 is about leverage. So in order to do that, you have to have team that's taking things off of your plate so that you can continue to grow, scale, and leverage your business through events.
Excellent. So I'm going to sum this up. Now, if we are using events as a strategy to grow our business, we first have to be super aware of where we really are. And I made the mistake that when I was very early on, I was really in phase number 1. I produced my own event. And $25,000 later, and not a single client later, I had learned a very expensive lesson, which is do not think that you built it and they will come. That does not work in events, especially if there's everybody else out there running these events. They just make it look so easy because they hire people like you to do this. But in the real world, it's a lot more difficult to get butts in the seats. So you're saying that in order to use my own events, I need to be clear about the different types of events, put them in a particular kind of category in phases, and then know what the marker is that I'm ready for the next big event. Yes. So let's talk about, in all of these pieces, you got to have a favorite strategy here. That is like your favorite strategy on how to use events. And you've done events for Lisa Nichols and some really big hitters and big names in the industry. So what's like your favorite strategy when it comes to events?
Yeah, my favorite event is 3-day sales and enrollment events. Now, this is going to be a phase 4, phase 5 type of event, because at this point you have proof of concept, you know how to, bring people into smaller events. You've got a list, you've got team. And now we can really start looking at scaling and leveraging your event to the point where you are filling your 6-month, year-long group coaching program in 3 days. In 3 days, I have clients just a couple of months ago. One made $2.1 million in 3 days.
So now I'm going to be devil's advocate here, and I'm going to say, well, that sounds really good, but that only happens to other people. Isn't this, it's easy for Lisa Nichols to do that because, she has the credibility. So how does somebody who has a solid business, but maybe not the name recognition, what is a solid strategy for somebody like that? A realistic, solid strategy, or maybe it doesn't have to be realistic because we talk about mindset all the time, right? You got to believe it so it can happen too. But where would that person go and say, okay, I don't think I can put 500 seats in an event. Mm-hmm. Is it still worth it to do 3-day events with 25 people, with 50 people?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely it is. We've got people that are doing 50-person events and still making 5 and 6 figures from 50-person events, especially if it was a 50-person 3-day event. Because the difference between like a 1-day sales and enrollment event and a 3-day is the time that you spend with the audience, taking them on a journey, right? Mm-hmm. So it's this arc, kind of like a movie. So instead of you're watching, like the audience member watching the movie, they're actually experiencing the movie. The way that we craft the run a show is that they have an experience. And whether or not they do business with you or not, they still are going to end with an event promise that will give them results if they take action, right? So in an example of a 3-day sales and enrollment event where you have, let's just say, a $10,000 offering. You have 50 people in the room. I'm just going to pull out my calculator real quick here. 50 people in the room at the time of the offer. And let's just say you have a 15% close ratio. We know that a percentage of people will say yes. So that means 7 people, we'll round down. 7 people say yes to your $10,000 offer. That's $70,000.
And so now an event like that will cost me what, around $25,000, $35,000 to facilitate over 3 days?
It depends. It depends on what it is that you're doing. So we'll do events that are virtual live, that you can be in your own home office like this, and the entire team is virtual. We can build a studio in your office and have team on site with you. Or we can, go much, much bigger and be in hotels or be in a hotel suite or Airbnb or what have you. So you can go really, really low tech, but still really high engagement, or you can go really big and have all the bells and whistles. But yes, you can do it for pretty decent price so that you have a nice profit margin.
So again, what I'm hearing, what I want to point out is that I think we all are pretty jaded with the event industry or the internet marketing approach to events, which has not always gotten a really good reputation about cook them until soft and then take them to the cleaners. So what we want is that as we are going out and we are, this podcast is about strategy, about growing your authority and scaling your impact. Mm-hmm. So if you are a mission-driven or an impact-driven entrepreneur or business owners, it's really about finding the vehicle that gets that impact message out so you can impact more people, because that is the whole piece. So what's the advantage of doing a virtual versus a live event? On a live event, if you don't sell the seats, everybody will know, because you look around and the seats are empty. And I've been in places where they said, oh, we have only 2 seats left. And then you come in there and you go like, oh no, you have like a lot of seats left that you didn't sell. Yeah. On a virtual, is there a risk factor that I need to pay attention to as a business owner when I go in? What do I need to know? What should I tell myself other than wishful thinking is not a strategy, but what is the strategy?
No. Yeah. So there's a couple of key points in there. One, our virtual events are live events. So they're not pre-recorded. They're not webinars. They're not live streams. They are live events. So the only difference is where we're hosting it, right? Are we hosting it virtually or are we hosting it in person? So that's one distinction that I want to make sure people are aware of. The second one is, how do we end up filling the room? And you want the strategy. So we end up using something that's called a ticket map. And a ticket map it's a simple spreadsheet, right? But it's listing out and strategically looking at how we're going to fill the room. So for example, if we have that goal of 50 people, if you were drawing out a piece of paper, you're going to have a couple of different columns. The first column is going to be the opportunity or the ticket source. This is all the ways you plan on reaching your audience. Is it an email list to a webinar? Is it sponsorship? Is it referrals? Is it product sales? Is it speaking engagement? Is it joint venture partner calls? Is it past clients? Like, what are all the different ways that you're going to go ahead and engage your audience and offer them a ticket to attend your event? The second column is going to be the anticipated number of prospects in the room, right? So if you're going to do a speaking gig that has 10 people in the room, you do that 5 times, we're looking at 50 people as an anticipated number. Then the next column is your anticipated conversion. It'll give you your projected ticket sales, and then you'll get your total sales. So you go through and fill this out as an exercise. And we do this with every single one of our clients because we want to do business based on the numbers. Mm-hmm. And as we start going through your speaking gigs, your webinars, everything else, we're going to say, okay, this was our projected, what actually happened, right? Because if you've got a joint venture partner call that you thought was going to be amazing and you're expecting to get 10 tickets out of it and nothing happens, okay, great. How do we go ahead and exchange something else in order to still have those tickets? So that's one of the strategic things that we utilize in looking at the numbers to make it so we are going to have a very successful event of having people in the room. Once they're in the room, we do a number of different things in crafting the run a show so that it is engaging and people are gaining value out of it, whether they do business with you or not.
I love that. I mean, I do know quite a few event planners. How can I not? I've been in this industry for a long time, but I don't think I've ever heard of somebody doing so much on the pre-production piece. Usually, what I like about your model, and again, I always want to point it out for the audience so they know what they're listening to. Because usually when you go to somebody, they tell you, well, what do you want? And then they try to cater to what you want. But most of the time, the client doesn't know what they want, or they have no knowledge of this particular field. Mm-hmm. So you go to the event planner and they say, well, what do you want? And you go like, I don't even know what the questions are to ask. And so you say, well, I want an event. And they say, well, how many people do you want there? And then you go and you pick a number and you go like, maybe 100. And they say, great. And then so you need a hotel. What's your budget? And suddenly you're going down the wrong rabbit hole of questions because it's all tactical questions of tactical execution question. These people I'm bringing in are from Australia, from the UK, from Canada. What are my chances that they're going to be traveling here? Or this list is from Greater Los Angeles. I am in Los Angeles. Does that change the ball game?
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. If you can have them in person, and then that is something that your audience is craving, absolutely, I would suggest looking at being in person, because we know when we're in person and we're in the energy, we have the meetings after the meetings. Right? We're in the hallway, we're at the bar, we're connecting with people after the event itself. And sometimes that's where the biggest breakthroughs happen. Now, if you have a very international audience, that might not be the best feasible opportunity for them to fly over to the States if they're from abroad, right? And just taking a look at what is the promise and what is it that you're looking to gain out of the event, as well as what are they gaining out of the event. So there's actually a few event fundamentals that we walk through with our clients. The one we spoke about a little bit earlier is your audience and the ticket sales, and going through the strategy of figuring out what are the real numbers that we're looking at. Because you can come to me and you can say, I want to put on 1,000-person event. I say, okay, great. Tell me a little bit about your audience. Tell me about your list. How are you planning on having these 1,000 people show up? Because if you have 1,000 people in person, that means you're probably having 1,500 tickets. And they go, I'm sorry, what?
You're like, yeah, that's the no-shows. Yes.
That's the no-show rate. Exactly. And if you're doing it in person versus virtual, what are the things that you're going to utilize, what we call stick strategy, in order from when they actually purchase the ticket to actually showing up? What are you doing in that time in between, right? Things you have to think through. So that's the first one. The second one is your run a show. What is the arc and the flow of the event? The third one is your offer strategy. Every single event you host has an offer. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a $10,000 offer, but if you're doing a Facebook Live, you have an offer. It could be to your free gift. It could be, type yes, yes in the chat. It could be something that you want them to take action. The fourth one is your support team. There's no way you can do this by yourself, and no way you should want to do this by yourself. We spend a good 100+ hours pre-event in the planning session for our 3-day events. That's just amazing. My team. That's not including your team.
That's amazing.
And then the fifth one is your budget. Like, let's look at the numbers. Let's not be shocked about what it is that we're really getting into here, and if we need to adjust things around the way.
Yes. And I think that's probably the smartest way to look at it. It's like, what are the different pieces of this strategy? Mm-hmm. And then how do we need to adjust them that they'll come out of it? I don't know, if you see this a lot, but I see this, is that sometimes people are afraid to do something they've never done. Mm-hmm. And then they back off before they even started because it's too daunting. Mm-hmm. Or a type number 2 is they don't believe any negative information at all. So they want to it's going to be successful. People are going to show up. I don't know what you don't know what you're talking about. My people love me. They're all going to be there. So what are we going to do with these 2 types of people?
Love them and love them. And, with enough grace and ease, say, I hear you. And this is what I'm seeing in the industry. So from my perspective, I can look at what is the conversion rates happening across the board in the virtual space. Where it was 2 years ago to where we are now has shifted. What does it look like in person back on when it looked like years and years ago? That has shifted. Why people are showing up, what people are really craving now. Mental health has been a huge piece of our world recently. And really, people are starting to take a look at what's going on for people. I had done a Google search the other day, and out of the top 10 searches, 3 of them were about happiness. How do I be happy with myself? How do we be happy alone? What can I do to be happier? Something along those lines. And so it's like, events really give us an opportunity to be in community. And when you're in community, that's when the happiness factor changes, because you're in a group with other like-minded individuals that are all going through the same thing, right? And so I think that's the underlying power of events, is that community and the ability to have accountability with other people that are like you, especially those of us that are entrepreneurs. Our family may not totally understand what the heck we do for a living.
No, interesting that you say that. My 78-year-old mother, now 87-year-old mother, my God, I just took off a couple of years, literally just asked me the other day what I did for a living. Like she can't fathom that there is a business consultant, but that's not her realm. So you have to be around people that are in your industry. And you said 2 very important things. You said the power of community. Mm-hmm. Is it a fair assessment to say that now where we are today, the community aspect is more powerful and probably one of your biggest sales tools right now? So what does this say about the audience that I want to have in my room?
Yeah, absolutely. It is the biggest thing. And I've actually been bringing that to the forefront of our conversations with my clients, is how are we creating community? Because 2 years ago at the beginning, we were giving information because people were like, I need to do this. I need to change. I need to shift. I need to pivot right away. I need all the information in order to do that. Now we're in a space where People have been isolated and they have nobody to really talk to. So we've changed the way that we've created our run a show, where before we were giving a lot of information and details and the 15 ways to do X, Y, and Z. Now it's pared back. So in the program, yes, you'll learn the 15 different ways, but in this event, we're going to show you 15, but we're really going to dive deep in 5. And we're going to have you actually experience it a lot more. We're going to have you be in community and breakout session rooms or partner shares or writing exercises, different ways to create the community aspect of it and going deeper versus wide. And I feel that has been one of the biggest shifts that I've seen this year in events. Case in point, we did a personal development event for one of my clients. And that was one of the biggest shifts that we made. I cannot tell you, it was amazing to go afterwards and watch the numbers. The stay rate was phenomenal. I've never seen a virtual stay rate, especially for a personal development event, be that high. And I think it's all because of that engagement.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's really another really big takeaway I want everybody to pay attention to. Is it's one thing to know how to teach. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's the foundation of everything. But where we are going at, and I think part of it is the metaverse and the talk about avatars and virtual engagement rooms and community building. Community building is something that you all need to pay really, really close attention to, because it is to have the information, to just throw it out there and say, here, go learn yourself, entertain yourself. I don't think that's working right now as much. I think what people are really craving is that how do I get into this engagement where I feel I get to know you, where I challenge myself and my belief systems. I see this in my work all the time when I work with experts, coaches, consultants, podcasters, is that it's hard for them to let go of the way it's always been. There's still a residual element, I think, Shay, from, is it not going to go back to the way it once was?
Yeah, right. No, it won't ever. It will never. I mean, I was looking at some stats the other day that was talking about, I think they interviewed or surveyed over 1,200 people. And as an attendee, 75% will still attend virtual events as in person start to show up. And 84% of those attendees would like to have some type of virtual option. That right there is a shift that we will never, ever go back to the way it was before.
No, and I think honestly that nothing takes away from the in-person experience. I completely agree. What I think is going to happen, and this is my personal assessment, is industry conferences in person because of networking. I think that will have its own place. But what I believe is happening in this space that we are in the personal development space, is that the larger piece, the getting to know, here's who I am. I think that a lot of it will stay virtual just because it allows more people to log in, and people still have kids and still need to log off at 5:00, and it's hard for them to travel. It puts undue burden on the partner sometime, especially if that person is traveling. It's expensive. Yep. So in order to get going, right, I believe that there is a big part of where we want to offer a version of it. And then let's start with these community events, but in a smaller setting. Mm-hmm. So I just facilitated an event, not a full event, but a piece of an event where I did a team building. I'm a certified Myers-Briggs practitioner. So in the leadership development piece, I have a piece that's about understanding yourself and then knowing how other people tick. And we were about 35 people. And that was a good room, actually, because you could do your breakout sessions in 5 and 6. Mm-hmm. And there was enough interaction there. It wasn't super long to still have each one of the groups come forward and share their findings, so that the event wasn't, it wasn't going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Because if you have a large event, not everybody can share. So,
Yep.
To sum this piece up of our conversation is that you need to think, in order to build your authority status, how can you put events into this community planning and outreach piece? And what would that look like? I personally have a recommendation for a book, and his name is John Levy, and the book's called You Are Invited, and he teaches you how to build communities. He's the guy who started the influencer dinner movement in New York. I mean, and made this a phenomenal success. I mean, absolutely fascinating. I was invited to one of the virtual pieces. I couldn't believe it, how well it was done, and just the amount of people and how long they stayed and the engagement and interaction. I mean, that guy got something figured out. So learn how to involve your community. Get a good event person like Shay, who doesn't just want to sell you the hotel so she can make her commission, but is your partner in this enterprise to help you be successful. Because Shay, when Shay and I spoke, she understands that if she gets you early and she helps you be successful, you're going to be a client for life. That's what you're looking for. And that's what we want to promote here on the show. You don't get rich on one sale. You make the money on repetitive sales. You make the money on the relationships you build and repeat clients and referrals. So how do we find out about you? And do you have a gift for us?
Yes, absolutely. So you can definitely find me on all the social media channels. You can take a look at our website, Grace and East Productions. But if you wanted to dive in a little bit more into the 5 phases, I do have that gift for you. So simply head over to 5phases.info, and that's spelling out the word 5, F-I-V-E, 5phases.info/growth. And you'll go through kind of a flow chart to figure out where you're at, as well as steps in order to move you through the phases. Because even if you're in phase 1, 2, and 3, does not mean it will take you long to get to phase 4 and 5.
Thank you so much. That was amazing information. We have obviously all of this in the show notes. Shay, this has been an amazing interview. I can't thank you enough for being here and for especially being so open and sharing your secrets here, because you did share quite a bit of information on behind the scenes on the strategy and the system that you have to help people to be successful as they're facilitating events. So again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. We'll see you all soon.
And that's it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. This is Beate Chalette, the Growth Architect. And that's it for us today. Thank you for listening and watching the Business Growth Architect Show. I enjoyed having you here. And for accountability, just take one of the strategies that you have heard, one thing that you can implement in your business immediately. Please leave comments. Don't forget to like and share this show. And if you have any questions about business, please put them in the comments. We are here for you. We're here to support you and help you to grow, build, and scale your own business. For more advice, please check out our website in the show notes below. Thank you again. This is Beate Chalette, the Growth Architect, and goodbye.